The next shape that we're going to be tackling here is this inner gun chamber where the bullets actually sit and kind of fly out and through this area. So this is going to be a bit complex. We've got a lot of cool shapes like cylinders and things like that, and then cylinders with cutouts, and then all this is kind of molded together and kind of blends together. So I think the approach that I'm going to do is doing a good chunk of the work in Maya and then maybe pushing that over to Zbrush and using some of their tools and there to kind of give this nice little beveling across all the pieces and things like that. You could potentially model this all by hand like what we've been doing for the box modeling, but again, think about of all the support edges and things like that that you had to hold for that. So again, it's possible multiple ways to do this, but we'll get started inside of Maya and try some of these shapes out. So the first thing we're going to want to do is just get a rough version of what the shape is actually all about. So let's do our whole create polygon primitives and do a cylinder again, and we do the options for this. And this time, because it's a bigger shape and there's more rounding to it, let's at least start off with 64 for that. So remember, we used 8 and then 16 and then 32, and we'll go up to 64, and we'll see how many different edges we've got for something like that. And we've got a radius of 2. Maybe we'll go up to 4 for this, and then height, I don't know, something like 10. We'll just see what that gives us, something like that. All right. So let's put on the rotate tool, tap E to put on the rotate tool, and hold down J to snap and rotate that into position. So we'll kind of move that over and push it up and through here. And let's check from our side view what we got. And it looks like we're pretty good with the spacing on this, but we need to definitely get this down a bit more. So we could hold on control and then scale this way so that scales 2 axes, and that probably makes more sense when you look at it from the perspective view, kind of doing this, right? And let's at least get it to be roughly in the middle, somewhere in here. I'll put it back on the rotate tool and scale down right through here. Actually, since we made this the center line of this cutout piece right here, I think that's where we should snap to. So if we move and you hold down V and you snap to that right there, that should give us the whole center point for that. Now we got to make a determination. This orange piece is a little bit bigger than the darker piece here. So would it make sense to make the bigger part of the shape is the black area? So maybe we should pay attention to that a bit more at the very beginning. Get something around here in this size. So as we do this, let's go back to our reference. Let's check our reference and see if we've got some other views. We've got this here. What I'm just trying to do is check out and see if we can kind of really see how much distance is going on through there. So there's a little bit of gap here. It kind of goes in quite a bit and then comes back down a little bit and through here. And here's our side view that we've got. That's what we're working against. So just want to try to double check that we're doing everything we can to make sure our scale and proportion and all that stuff is correct. And so if I do that opacity change thing again, looks like we definitely need to scale down just a little bit more, somewhere in here, and then this is going to get a little bit bigger here. So we'll use this as a starting point for this right now, like that. Okay, so I also want 2 different pieces, right? So this can work okay for this. Let me just change the name of that. I'll call this main. I can duplicate it and then scale this one up like this and make sure we're capturing maybe the size of the orange piece, somewhere in here like this. And obviously we need this to go back a bit more. And really our pivot point should be at the end of this one here. So we'll tap D, hold down V, and then snap to this point here. And then now we can take this and move it and hold down V and snap right to that edge there like that. And now this piece, I'm just gonna leave it for now. And then this one is basically got, you know, something that goes to about here-ish, and then bevels in. So we don't need all these edges in through here. So we can control right click on that edge loop and say to edge loop and delete. Do that again. We'll tap G for last command after we have one of the edges selected. Then I'll right click, go to vertex. I'll take my verts and then just try to pull them in to about here. And then we can scale this in until we get to be about there, right in there. So we're starting to get our shape. We've got definitely a separation in through here on this one. So let's just take these verts, we'll move these and snap them to that right there. We've got this piece here that's going to kind of come along through here and hold all these little guys here. We've got an edge here. We need another one. So we're going to hit F10, and you know, we could use the multi-cut tool. You could do that, or you can select an edge and say control, and you can say to edge ring utilities and split. So let me go back there. So control right click to edge ring utilities, to edge ring and split. Now this thing does have something in the channel box. So you can select it and you can click the weight and middle mouse drag. If you hold down control, you can get finer control of the movements on that. So that's a possibility. There's a lot of possibilities. Shift right click, you can do the insert edge loop tool. That's another way that you can kind of do this. So again, there's quite a few different ways of getting to this, and we're going to build something like this in here. And what we could start doing at that point, let's go here, is we've got a bunch of edges, and we can go and say, if you hit the up arrow key, and I don't know why I have to do this multiple times. So the second time I do it, it'll give me this whole ring that goes along here. Those are edges. I can convert that to faces. You can hit Control F11. So anytime you have a selection, you can hit Control and hit another thing like hotkey, and it'll convert it into a different selection type. So then I can take that and then shift right click. We're going to extrude that in. You can change the thickness of it a bit. If you hold down Control, it gets finer control. So I'm going to pull it in about there, like that, and through there. So as I look at the shape a little bit more, we've got you know, a cylinder with a bevel that comes in, and this gets to be a smaller cylinder here, and then we got these separate like tubes that are going to go back through here. So let's take some of our verts that we have in through here, like these guys, and we'll scale them down. We could do a uniform scale, but remember it's going to do that to it. So we can hold down Control and scale in 2 axes like this, and that'll give us something more like that right there, right in through here. We're just kind of roughing everything out, you know, so I don't think we need necessarily support edges on this thing just yet. But visually, we could add a hard edge through here. So shift right click and do harden edge, kind of like that. And you can see that there. It's also got the Lambert material on it. So let's select these and right click, and if you don't have one made, go ahead and assign new material. But you know, I'm just right clicking, and I've already got a blend material. I'll tap G for last command for this right here like that. And on this one we could shift right click, soften harden edge, do soften harden, angle of about 20 like that. just to help us understand the shape a little bit more. Then I'm deleting history on that. And let's just freeze the transformations, modify freeze transformation. Same for that, like that there. Okay, so we're getting close there. Let's go ahead and make now, we're gonna make some new cylinders. Let's do create polygon primitive, cylinder, do the option box, and then this time the radius a lot smaller. Height, we could leave it something like 8 or something like that. And divisions 16. Let's try that. And divisions, we don't need that many. We can just do 1 for the division for the height. So hit apply like that, and we're going to rotate it. So tap E, and if you hold down J, you can rotate and snap to degree increments, and we can move this into place. And we'll try to get our first cylinder going. And it would make sense to just hold down V and then snap to that center point like what we were doing before. Now we can kind of push this thing out and through here. And let's take a look at the scale of this. I'm going to assign existing material, do the blend, and put it on, tap R for scale, sorry, and hold down control, and we can basically do this to our object and get it roughly the right size. If I put this, I'm just trying to compare it down there. The trickier part is that, as we scale this thing down, it has to be brought out as well. And so it sticks out from here like this a little bit. I don't know. It does seem like we could do the smooth mesh preview thing on here, or we could take this and pump it up to 32 to give more divisions along and through here. And that feels pretty good. So looking at the actual model for this, if we take this cylinder, let's call this bullet, like this, shaft, something like this. I'll do 001. There's 6 of these, so what I'm going to do is take this, just group it, and that will let me take the group and make a new pivot point for that. So I do need to see, I just want to concentrate on this, so I'm going to isolate everything, Control 1, and sometimes doesn't work, so I just have to go up here and say show isolate selected view selected. I'm not sure why it doesn't work sometimes, but is what it is. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of wireframe on shaded, and now I can move the pivot point for this. So if I tap D, I can go here and hold down V, and I can snap this to the center here. Just need to make sure I'm actually on the center one. And then I can hold down V and then move this thing down to here to make sure my pivot point's in the center for that, for the group. Now I can duplicate the group. There's 6 of these, so let's see if we do this real quick. Let's take 360 divided by 6, and we need to rotate this 60 degrees. Now, Maya has a function where you can duplicate with transform. You can hit Shift D, and that'll give us the duplicates that we need for that, right there like that. And I'll turn the wireframe off, shaded there, like there. And I'm just gonna I'm looking at the physical object right now. I'm actually looking at the gun, and feels like maybe the orange piece that's right here maybe comes out a little bit more. So I can hold down Control and just scale that up just a little bit, and if I hit Control 1, that should be bring everything back for me. So what's kind of interesting about this is like we can take all these pipes, let's group them together into a new group, and I'll do modify center pivot, and I'll put the pivot in the center for that, and then I can try to move these up to where this is going down right down the center of this. So let me go to the front view, tap 4 for my wireframe view, and I think I should just need to rotate it 30 degrees like this. And then so then now I've got these cylinders kind of pushed out to where I should be able to see this now. If I take one of them, I'm just gonna take this top one, and if I duplicate it and move it out, this should actually be the center of like this piece here. You know, I think I mentioned in the video when I was making this that you have to kind of eventually figure that out for the pieces for this. Let me see if I go to the side view, just take a look at this right here like that. I know I scaled that up a little bit. Maybe I'll put that back down to 1 just because it's really tight in through there. And so then this is going to have to be lined up to the center of that piece there. So then now everything should line up, and later on this would ensure that you know, the bullets, if I you know, basically do a boolean from this object to these guys here, because what I would probably want to do is, this is the same exact size as this this piece here, and let me just do this. I'm going to duplicate all these, and then I'll move them forward like so, and then each one of these, let's see if I scale these down a little bit. Actually, I'll just freeze their transformations. So modify freeze transformation, and if I take each one, I want to do something like this. I'm going to grab all this because I just want to see this stuff. I'm going to hit Control 1 again, and I'm going to get each one of these scaled down a little bit like that. So knowing that this is like kind of a close number, I'll just do 0.87 like that, and I could do that for the rest of them. Just take this value, hold on, shift click here, 0.87, and that'll scale them in, and I can just do mesh combine for that. I'll make this neg for negative, and that'll be a negative shape. Okay, before I do the boolean, I've got to admit that I kind of messed up and didn't have this scale of this quite right. So looking at the reference that I have, there's a lip that comes really close to these shapes that are kind of booleaned out in right here. So I just went back to the reference here and scaled this down. This part is just a little bit bigger going across here than these parts right there. So just want to make sure the scale is correct. And what I'm going to do is select this face right here. I'm going to scale that in a little bit by extruding and do an offset. If I hold down Control, I can get it pretty close to here. So I'm going to go right about there with that. Tab G to do it again and do an offset. Pull that in somewhere in here. Tab G again. Offset, and then this time I'll shift right click and say merge face to center. So it's going to give me some geometry kind of looking like that. I need to do the same thing on this side. So what I'll do is this. What I want to look at is this and this. Control 1, just hide everything except for those pieces, and I'm going to do this here where we're going to hit F11. Extrude that, offset, this just a little bit for this thickness of this. G again, hold down control and kind of drag this out like this. G again, and then I'll shift right click, merge faces to center. Okay, so that'll give me that shape, and I can delete that out. And what I'm going to do now is take this negative and this shape here, and I'm just going to freeze transformations on everything. Everything looks good. So now we can do the boolean between the two of these. And we'll do mesh booleans, do a difference, and this is what we've got now for this. Okay, so this is going to produce, this geometry here, and it's going to definitely need some cleanup work on it, because we can't obviously just tap 3 and do the smooth mesh preview and kind of see what that looks like. Now, because we got to do a lot of cleanup, and this thing is basically going to be, this part here, if we divide it along here and here, it should be exactly the same everywhere. So, like, what I mean by that is, if I go in here and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spans here. So if we go in between 2 like that, double click that, and we double click this one, and we go to mesh, and we need to detach that. And then if we do this, if we hit F8, if we go to mesh and separate, it's going to make that into its own little chunk. So it takes that mesh, and we kind of, we detached the edges, and then we used separate to make that a separate object. So if I delete history on that and this piece, let's just hide that for now and just test this out. So I'm going to select this, and I need my pivot point to be right here. So I can just have D, hold down V, snap right here, right like that. And now if we hit Control D to duplicate and we rotate, so you put on E and then hold down this. Actually, I need to just rotate it around. I think this is going to be, let's say, -60. And this is where I wanted to hold that other piece and make sure that this was what was going on here. So we've got the old piece. We've got this piece here, and then here is the new one. But there's a gap going on between there. So this is not exactly correct just yet. And what I want to do is build this out to where we would be able to duplicate this around multiple times, and then we could just do everything we need to do to kind of clean up and fix on this one piece. But before we do that, we do want to make sure that all of our pieces are correct as far as being able to do this duplication process. So I'm going to see if I need to take just a sliver of this, half of this, and half of this, if that's going to give me everything I need to do this. So we can select an edge, hit F10, select the edge, control right click on it and say to edge ring utilities, to edge ring and split. We'll do that here as well, and then we can use the multi-cut tool, and we can go from here down like this, and we'll go back on the other side here like this, here and here. Now let's take these edges now and this edge. Let's do this again. We'll detach and separate. So let's just combine these together real quick. Mesh, combine. Okay, delete the history of that, and I'm going to hide this for now. And I'm going to take this, duplicate it, rotate it. Let's do that. Let's Tab D, and move the pivot point. Sorry. Tab D, hold down V, snap. There we go. Okay, now we can duplicate this. Go -60. And we are still not there quite yet. Okay, one thing I could do is this. If I duplicate this, if I do edit duplicate special, and if I do this as an instance and rotate Z -60, and we could do number of copies 5. That should give me everything I need here. So with an instance though, what's kind of interesting is you can move one point around and it moves all the other ones at the same time. So what I could do is kind of scale these points until I can kind of figure out where should this be on this. Something like that. So obviously this is not going to be perfect, but again, I'm just trying to figure out this center line for this. And what I could do is I could sew all these guys together. I mean, I could combine them together. Sometimes Maya has trouble whenever you combine instances. So one thing you could do is go to modify and you convert instance to object like that, and that'll turn these instances into regular pieces of geo. So we can combine all these, do mesh combine like this, hit Control F9 to do select all the verts in here, and we can do Shift right click merge vertices and do the merge vertices option and have a really low threshold again, and hit apply for that. Let's take a look here. Let's go to display polygons, custom polygon display, and then go to turn on border edges, and then we're going to need to keep upping this value until we get all these snapped together. And something like that. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. So now we at least know how to get that chunk to where we can work on that one chunk and not have to worry about if we duplicate across it not working. So let's just do these. I'm going to do these by hand. So I'm going to select them, say merge vertice to center. Make sure I'm not selecting anything other than just those two. And tap G for last command like this. So I'm going to sew these guys up too. So select them, tap G for my last command. Hold down Control, getting rid of that selection. There we go. Okay, delete history, and now let's do that select edges again, So shift, add to that selection. We're going to cross there. And now we're going to go to detach. You can see it splits that open again, and mesh and separate. And now we should have a chunk that if we work on this, we can do something like this where I'm going to tap D, hold down V, put the pivot point back here again. But we work on it and we can go to mesh and we can do mirror and say we're mirroring X and we go across here like that. Then everything should work okay for that, right? Okay, let's start going through the process of actually cleaning this up. I am going to try one thing here where this edge loop, because we added some split between here, I'm a little bit worried about it later causing some problems where it doesn't round correctly through here. So I'm just going to select this edge and then go all the way through here, shift right click and do slide edge tool. And if we middle mouse, we can kind of go right in through here like that, and then let's mirror this thing across, and I'm going to do positive direction like that. And so I think that'll be decent for that. The next thing we need to kind of tackle is this cutout, and this is going to be probably quite a bit of work. So let's do multi-cut tool. Let's just go right in through, maybe somewhere right here. Let's try to emulate like thickness of this here. So I'm going to cut across here, 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 like this. I'll just go across, hit enter, and then we can drag out from these different points like that. And let's go all the way through here, come about here, and I'm going to end this just so I can add some geo here. Now if we see some stuff like this where you see that this line comes in through here, we got this geo, they should match up. So we can just take like points like this and say merge vertices to center and get rid of this edge and this point. And we could do stuff like this where we take these, shift right click and target weld this up like this, and just start connecting some of this this stuff up like this. So you know, I don't know, I think we can get rid of that point there, and we could do something like that as well. And that starts to continue on. Now if I was following this pattern, I think we would do another split up and through here, because you know we're going to continue this geometry up and over like this. Tap Y like this, and then let's start to work our way around here. Just like this, and I'll end it here just to give us something to play around with. So I'm going to kind of grow this out a little bit. Now the good news, I guess, for us is that because this is a flat surface, this will make it a little bit easier for us to extend geometry out, things like that, and that part won't be quite as difficult. So let's get rid of this here. Shift right click in there and say target weld. Let's do this through here. So we got something like that, and yeah, we'll kind of pull this geo out. Now, because we're doing all these fixes on this side, if we mirror across, we need to keep that in mind for when we mirror. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to mirror it across in this direction. I'm going to do that, and I think we already got it kind of fixed up this way, so I'm going to negative X right now for that. And if I just tap 3 just to see kind of what's going on, just to start to get an idea, it's going to be really difficult to know how this is going to be really behaving until we get a little more geometry on this going. So let's go ahead and multi-cut, and we need something like this because we need more geometry right in there. We'll see how this behaves if we do this. I'm going to mirror it across again, then tap 3, and it's starting to bevel this. You know, we're starting to get a lip, but I'm not so big on some of the shading that was just doing for us right there. So if we get rid of this and this and do a multi-cut tool, let's see what happens if I just tap 3 now and just let, I know we've got an end gun on there, but I just want to see how it reacts to the surface. Like, it feels like it's got less visual problems by just doing that part right there like that. Okay, so let's continue this on. Multi-cut tool. That, and I'll finish these out. I've already got one there. So I need to move this over. Like that. And let's start to add some geometry coming across here. And this is what I was saying, this is a flat face, so it should shade decently for us, even if the geometry isn't like super great going across here, but you know, you do want to be somewhat clean about this. Now, I could have just done this and drag it across here like this, and it'll just cut straight across. That'd actually probably give me cleaner results. Now if I go here, then I got something like this going on. Let me tap 3 to see what that does geometry wise. I think it's okay. I mean, the other thing we could do is come from here and go across, and that'll turn it into a quad for sure. But there is a little bit of pinch on there, so you have to kind of look out for stuff like that, and then maybe move it up just a little. So we could also add a ring going along here. So if we use the multi-cut tool, hold on Control, and try to give us something like this in here. So I'm just holding on Control and Shift to do these guys going straight across like that. It gives you that little tool like this, comes in very handy. These I might have to do by hand. Let's go that far with it. Hit enter. And let's mirror it. Tab 3. Take a look at it. I definitely don't like these edges that I made. So let me get rid of these. These feel just sloppy to me. So select the verts, get rid of them, and then we can use the multi-cut tool again. And I think these are not the best either. So we use the multi-cut tool and go across with this. Tap Y for the last tool. And I really didn't like the way that this was pinching right there. I think you probably saw it whenever I was using that tool. So I need to think about this, how we end this part here. So we got more geometry kind of flowing in through here. I'm curious to see if I just don't even have edges there at all. If you tap 3, what does it do to resolve that, and how does it look? So I think it shades. Shades fine for me. So the other thing we could do is run these across. And if we've got an end gone there, how does it look? I think it looks okay. Can mirror that across. And so this is close to being cleaned up. Now what would be maybe nice is if I took some of these edges here like this and maybe pull that in just a little bit, because I want to see if we pull that in, if we get a little more rounding kind of happening there, because that's what I'm looking for, a little bit of kind of roundness, a little bit of light to hit that surface right there. So it feels like that's starting to happen. And then because we changed that, we need to kind of pull some of these back just a little. I might pull this direction. I could take these edges here and try to lift them. We could see what that looks like if we just slightly lift it up and take these and slightly lift it. And roll around. You're checking the spec on this. Okay, I'll mirror that across like that. So that's the front part, and I'll clean up the back, and then after that, then we can just duplicate this thing all around. Okay, I fixed up this side, and we already saw that. And I went to the back side, and what we've got here is that I started adding a little bit more geo around here. Looking at the reference, we've got a section here that gets pushed in. So I wanted to show that before I mirrored that across like this. And then now we've got some stuff to deal with where we've got this new shape like this. And if we tap 3, you know, this is all very soft and through here. This edge is holding pretty nice. These edges are holding pretty nice. This is gonna hold pretty nice, but currently it's very soft right now. So What I need to do with this is use the multi-cut tool and add some more of our support edges. So we got maybe a support edge here. Make sure there's one here like that, and maybe some geo going down the center. Let's tap 3 now and see what that looks like. And I do think it looks better. We have to deselect completely to kind of see this. I did turn off the shading on here. I used a default material just so when I was modeling it was kind of hard to see. So now you want that blend on there to kind of see the quality of everything. So if I tap 1 and take a look at that, it just feels like the thickness of this is kind of thinning out and through here. And so maybe what I could do now is I could maybe add a bevel to this and make it like 0.2 for that, and then let's tap 3 now and see what happens. So I think that's getting better. And maybe add one more strip of geo through there to kind of hold that. And so I think that's it's looking pretty good. It's a pretty complex shape, right? And because we were able to duplicate it, we can kind of concentrate on some areas a little more heavily like that. I'm not a huge fan of what's going on with this in here. Let's see if we do the multi-cut tool, split through there. It does feel like you know, we need something kind of coming around here, where if we did something like this, oops, and come here like that, and then now we've got this geo to kind of deal with. If I make a corner for that, I can get rid of this right here, and this will go right here to that. You get rid of this edge and get rid of these verts. So we go here, get rid of this edge, and let's go ahead and do a multi-cut, and we'll go from here to here. I'll just do G for my last command, and we got a vert. Let's get rid of that vert. Let's get rid of this edge, and let's mirror that across like that. Let's see what happens when we tap 3 now. So that really rounds out quite a bit. I would like to add something in through here to kind of hold that. But I do think that we're going to need to do some work to extend this out. Otherwise, I think this is going to give us problems. So I'll tab G for my last tool, like that. And let's extend this like that. I don't know how that's going to affect things if I go here like that. Let's just try it out. Let's see how this goes. I think that looks pretty good. You see how we held that shape like that, and now we've got bevels on everything. There is a little, like, I can see some not so great shading right in through there. So I don't know if we get rid of this here like that. Let's just see if that gives us any better results. 3 for that, and then roll around there. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but I do think it's not doing too bad of a job. Okay, so I'll hit 1 for that, and you can see I added a little more geometry in through the tubing and through here. Now if we got a little bit of wobble in some of that, we can always take this, hit F10, and do the edge loop, put on the scale tool, and you can always just do something like this real quick to get everything nice and straight if you want. And maybe we can pull this edge closer to that. Get this a little evenly spaced. Okay. Alright, so now we're finally ready to do this, where we can duplicate, do the rotate -60, Shift D to duplicate those, and then now let's take these all together and let's merge them together. Okay, I'm going to save just real quick. Probably should have done that before I did the mesh combine. I've had crashes on that before. So now we've got the whole object. We need to get this merged together. Remember, if we go to display, polygons, custom polygon display, and then look at the border edges, we can see that, and we need to make sure we don't have any border edges. So object mode, control F9 to convert that into selections of verts. Shift right click and then say merge vertices option box and do a low threshold, and looks like all those lines went away, the thick lines, so that means we should be good. Everything should be sewn up. And now if we tap 3, then we've got something that looks like this. I'm not super happy about this right here. I'd like a nicer kind of flow through that. I do wonder if I were to do something like this and just lift it up, what that would do. It's not really giving me the results I was hoping for. So let me just move this up a little bit and see if that's going to do any better. If I want to be nitpicky, I could work on that a little bit more. I really am not super happy about this pinch right there, so I do like this more arcing kind of look a little better, but I'll do that offline. And I think this is looking pretty good for the shape now. If I hit Control F1, now we got this piece going in through here, and we've got everything kind of ready and set up. And I know this shape, this is kind of a little bit more of a difficult shape to hit in through here, but yeah, there's going to be more to this shape. Okay. Alright, after a bit of work on this, let me go ahead and show you some of the changes that I made for this. So I'll select these pieces here. Actually, I've got everything grouped together in this barrel section, and I'll hit Control 1. If that doesn't work, then I'll go to Show, Isolate, Select, View Selected. Okay, so already talked about this a little bit, just fixed up these parts right in through here, where I didn't quite like the transition that was kind of going on there, so I just had to do a little finessing in those parts, and then duplicate all the results going all the way around for that. Took these tubes and actually hollowed the tubes out, and then added some support edges to that, so there's some rounding that's happening on that. And so that's that for those tubes. The major part that is a big addition is these things here, and also these little notches that you see on here. So these are pretty simple. These are just little shapes like this. So I was actually just taking a cube, and if I tap 1, you can see I added support edges along and through here,
and there is no support edge. Like you see the support edge here, it holds this and it makes it nice and straight, but there isn't a support edge anywhere in through here, so that does a lot of rounding through here. So when I tap 3, you can see how far that kind of rounds that out. So that makes that kind of flat here and rounds that out. And then as it's put on here, I just made one of them and then duplicated them by hitting, you know, you can hit Control D, and then you can move something or rotate something. And then if you want to get a copy of that, let me just hit Control D. I'll show you this real quick. So you've got this piece, and if you hit Control D and you do some sort of transform, you can move it. You can also rotate, and if you hit Shift D, it'll duplicate with transforms on it. So you can make a bunch of different copies like that. And basically, I just duplicated one, moved it, I think 6 degrees or so was the rotation on these, and then just duplicated them all the way around. The other thing is these kind of notches that are kind of cut out and through here. And this took a little while to kind of figure out. I can go ahead and try to isolate this whole piece now, right there, like that. Tap 1 and you can see what this looks like. So again, I tried to set up one piece and then duplicate it over. It needed to be duplicated 6 times. So if you work out the math for this, then you want to have as many spans that can kind of divide easily with 6. So you know, you can just take a little calculator thing out and kind of figure out what the numbers are that you would want for something like that. But that'll give you a nice kind of even chunk to kind of duplicate and move around. So then I had to kind of do this part here where you see this indent within through here. That wasn't too difficult to do. It's like basically selecting these faces here, something like this. And if you do an extrude face, and we'll just push this thing down and over real quick, just so I actually did it on the one that's on the top, so everything will be nice and symmetrical. Once you have something like that, you can take these points and you can just merge them. So I shift right click and say target weld, and then you can do something like that to get those pieces back in there like that. And you would do the same thing for the bottom. So you just pull these guys up like that. Now when you smooth it, obviously that's not going to hold these edges very well. So if I tap 3, you can see kind of what happens at that point. So it needed support edges for all those pieces in through there. So this did take a little bit of time. So you want some support edges. Like if you do a multi-cut, you would want to go like from here. If I hold down Shift, I can get a percentage. So maybe like 90% there. If I hold down Control and Shift, it's not going to do it for me. So I'll just hold down Shift and we can continue that number out and through here like this, and we'll go there like that. So we've got something here. You need something on the outer part. You need support for the inner part, and you can see kind of what I did here. So I'll just do something like this, hold down Shift and get a percentage like this. And when you get this, you'll end up with this pattern that's right here, and you can take the verts on that, and you can take these and you can merge those together. Let me just tap W, make sure I've got just those selected. Shift right click, say merge vertices to center, just like that. And then you can take that edge and get rid of it, and it'll give you this right here. So when you tap 3 and you do the smooth mesh preview on it, you can see how it's starting to hold that edge on there, and then you don't have a bunch of extra geometry just like coming out of there. So let me go ahead and hit undo and get rid of that. So that was these pieces in through here, and once that was done, I added enough spans in through here to where basically I knew I had to build this pattern. This was pretty easy after I had enough faces for this. So I know this isn't going to be the right exact shape for this, but something like this here. So I have that, and then let me select these pieces. And I think I've got some underneath, so I'll deselect that. And so you can see that was the basic kind of shape for that. It did have a span running down through the center, and again, it was just extruding that down. And then it was a matter of, this did take quite a bit of time to do this part. I wish it was a bit faster for that. But had to build all the support edges all along here. So this stuff actually, after that shape was extruded in, that was pretty easy. You know, it was really easy to put these support edges on, but what took time is building custom geometry that went around all this. So I know I've got a bunch of extra geometry in here and everything, but if I took this and did this edge loop and delete, you can kind of see somewhat of what needed to be built first, right? So I had to build some support edges that went all the way around and through here, and it took a little bit of time to get all this kind of cleaned up and through there after that was run. And then after I had one made, then I can kind of easily just go ahead and add another loop on there. So if I tap 3, then you can kind of see everything that's kind of going on with that. I didn't want the geometry to continue all the way through, so I did leave an end-gon in through there. So if I just tap 3 for that, that's okay in there. And had to do a little bit of work on here to get support edges on the bottom part as well. And then once I had this chunk done, and then this was working for one, then I just used that as, like, you know, that pattern. I just separated these pieces off from everything else, and then duplicated it like this, and then merged it all back together, and merged the verts. Now, I don't have any holes in this thing. I don't know if I will actually add holes to this later, but you can see if I really wanted to be able to look down these barrels, just like you would in real life, then I would need to do a process of cutting out these shapes in through here, going all the way back through that. And again, I don't know if I'm gonna get to that level or not on this thing, but all that work that basically you know, concludes this shape in through here, setting all that up. And like I said, the only thing that I would maybe have to do additionally to this is make sure that I'm knocking out those tubes that are going back and through here, and that would be quite a bit of work to get that done as well. So like I said, not sure if I'm going to go to that level or not. Something else that I did was just set this up real quick with Arnold to be able to render with Arnold. So I don't know if you're thinking at this level yet about any particular kind of rendering thing, but I like to get that kind of going early in a project. So if you do want to use Arnold, you can go to Windows Setting Preferences, go to the Plugins Manager, and we'll have to scroll down here. There is a Maya to not the FBX. That's to Mental Ray. This is Maya to Arnold right here. So you'd have to load that and tell it to auto load. Once you do that, then you can you know, set up your renderer. So I put that on the Arnold renderer. I'm not going to get into this too much, but like, these are some of the camera, the anti-aliasing settings and things like that. This is pretty high for this. So normally I do like 4, 4, and 4 for this. So I set that up for that. Also the resolution, you can give it your own custom resolution. This is the resolution that I was rendering on for that. But once you've got that set up, your resolution, and you can just kind of come here and say Arnold render view, and I've got to get this set up. And if I go ahead and hit play on that and hit 1 for this, you can see it's starting to render. I just set up a very basic kind of lighting kind of setup for this. And it does take a little bit of time to render this thing, just because, like I was saying, with the anti-aliasing settings that I had set up. But like I was saying, I like to get this kind of set up early in a project, and that way I'm kind of rendering and checking things from a rendering standpoint through the duration of the project. So not only do you check the model quality as you're modeling it, but then you're also kind of rendering it and checking it from that standpoint as well. So that way, when you're done with your model, you should be ready to go and render and have all your shots established and set up for that.